sent this. It's a topic that I'm 32 and a half right now, so I turned 33 in July.
Yeah.
And did you ever feel that, like, when you're diving into breath work, like in your 20s, like that pressure to like have it figured out?
Yeah, I love that question. I'll say that I don't think I've shared this publicly on a podcast or in writings or anything, but I'd be honored to share it with you because it's on my heart to start talking about this publicly. So I'll use this as my time. But I just recently, in the last 2 years, and just recently in the last year, have started to finally be. No, I shouldn't say finally. I want to take that back. That's probably why I need to practice being able to speak about this. But I've been able to feel my energy, my aura, and I've been able to connect with it outside of my body through breathing and feel it within my hands. And I've done some Reiki work and I've done some energy work and I've been with some healers over the last couple of years. And I was very, very still am so new to the space and I was very not sure what this was. And I just recently started having experiences for myself that, again, I don't want to talk about or try to define it other than the fact that I've been able to expand my breathing from inside of me to outside of me. And I can finally start to feel this energy that I can move. And it's funny you asked me that because this morning specifically, I was going to my friend's house, a very dear friend of mine. And I was thinking to myself on the way to his house that's been maybe 15 years of breath work. I mean, I've been meditating since 2008 is when I really started like aggressively diving into it as a thing for myself. And in my 20s, to your point, I always felt like I needed to have it figured out, but more so the thing that I definitely didn't deal well with was people coming to me thinking I had it figured out and me not sure if I should act as if I have this figured out. So a lot of times I felt like I had to play the character that they imagined a breathing coach would be, and they imagined a meditative person for 10 plus years would do. And I think in my 20s that was, I don't want to say that like held me back because I think that's just part of it, but that was definitely something that I really, really struggled with. And again, that is disconnected from just me being me. And I think I think in my 30s, and I've kind of built a relationship with that, I'm having experiences now that are so new to me in breathing, and I'm trying to understand our aura fields, and I'm trying to connect with energy and to really grasp that concept. It's so profound to me that it's like just as profound as how much a 5-minute YouTube meditation was to me 15 years ago, And so the fact of how profound that was to me to where this is now, I think lets me know that I'll never have it understood. I will never know what any of it is. And so I don't try to, it's not mine, if that makes sense. And when you're guiding breath work, I think what I've learned is that when you're guiding breath work or you're playing sound bowls or you're doing anything for anybody, that is not your energy at all. You are not connected to what they're having as an experience at all. You are simply a medium to an experience that someone is going to have. And that's it. And so it is what it is. Like, it's not mine. It's not your, I don't even want to touch it. It's just your experience. I think when I was 20, in my 20s or early in my career, I wanted you to come out of the Wim Hof and be like, holy, what was that? You're the best. And I wanted to be like, that's right. I'm bringing the house down on this breath work.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, dude, thanks for sharing that. Cause seriously, I really, really appreciate that. Cause I just asked because something that I've uncovered throughout this process is like, it's like the question you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And it's something from Tim Ferriss and Rich Roll. It's like one of my favorite things I've ever found on a podcast, but it was like, in some ways, when you ask the question, what am I doing with my life? You trick yourself into thinking you're the only one that asks that question.
Yeah.
And no one else does. And then the other part, like Rich Roll, and that's one big push behind this podcast is like Rich Roll says, like, when you ask, who am I? You're banking on everything that's happened in the past. of like who you are now versus like the question like who am I becoming is more related to like what you're gonna do today, like the
Sure.
actions you take right now. So like who you become is more so in your control. Who you are or who you think you are is more related on things in the past. But I just think there's like that unique, or maybe it's every age. Maybe I think it's unique just because it's the age bracket I'm in. But I I put pressure on myself because I'm like, oh man, like, okay, I really love this writing thing.
Yeah.
And like I would like my buddies asked me like, oh, like when are you gonna start getting paid? And I was like, oh, that didn't even cross my mind.
Right.
And then it's like same thing for the podcast. Like, but then it's like, okay, like what am I gonna do? Like I came up with this thing and maybe it's not healthy, but it's like, or it is, I just gotta figure it out. But it's like
Yeah.
the decade of excellence. Like who
Okay.
do I want to be by 40?
Yeah. I like that.
And then it's like maybe it goes back to the nouns and verbs thing too, but you're like, oh, okay, so like I've wrestled with this and journaled about it. It's like, dude, the decade of excellence. So when I'm 40, doesn't mean I'll have it figured out by 40. It's just that I'm like working through that process. I don't know if there's like a direct question in that, but it's like it's just something I've thought about. It's like you're in that age bracket of like 26 to like 36. Like that is such an interesting time, especially like I guess it's all just my perspective. So
Yeah.
26 to 36 in a guy's life is a crazy age range
No
of
doubt.
like of experiences of like uncovering who you are, who you want to be. And it's like I do feel like there's that pressure. You're like, oh, I gotta have it figured out. And then but in the process of like trying to have it all figured out, one, like no one has it figured out.
Right.
Two, if you had to pick who that was, you're like, who you picking, dude? Nobody has it figured out. You don't have a number one draft pick like that dude's got it figured out.
No doubt.
And then it's like it also like takes you away from the present. So like my best friend Mike, he always is like, dude, today, like right now is the good old days. And like I'll say that to myself. Like I'll say it in front in like in the mirror. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, right now is the good old days. Right now is the good old days. You're like,
Yeah.
okay. And no like direct question in that. I guess that's where
I
like
like that.
that's what I was asking. Like if you've ever wrestled with like, dang, I just need to like have this figured out. I need to land at this job with the San Francisco Giants and have this
Yeah.
book. And then like once I have that book knocked out, I can write my second book and then I'll be chilling. And you're like, well,
All the time.
yeah.
I think that, this is something that I've wrestled with that same thought, and I've actually talked about this more as I've gotten older, especially people that I've grown up with and people who I went to high school with and I've been childhood friends with. This is probably the best conversation to have with that friend, I think. And I think if you look at, for me specifically, uh, I have been addicted to success and achievement in accomplishing things since I can remember, and a lot of that stems from when I was younger. I have your very classic stories of, like I said, in second grade, I was told I was a special needs student, and I was in special education, for 2 years, and I was told I would never go to college. I told I wasn't going to I wasn't going to play professional baseball. I was told you can't be an entrepreneur. I was told you're never going to work in Major League Baseball. You can't be like all that stuff I've had, and I could talk on a whole other podcast of very distinct moments that like really messed with me, and they drove me insane. Now, with that said, I'm not unaware of like the character that someone would see in me or say of me. I'm not gonna act dumb to that. I understand that the field that I play in, I'm perceived as I've done decently well. I've had some success, right? And but at the same time, the duality to that has been a disaster. It's been an insane. I gave up my 20s. Like I gave up I worked every day. I've worked every day for 15 years. Like I've been obsessed with trying to do things. And I think like as much as I can look at that in a negative light, I almost flip that and now I see it and I go, but that has made me learn and figure out who I am. And it is what it is. And it's like I can where I say that, I know I gotta be speeding up here, but it's like,
Oh, you're good. We got a
okay,
few minutes.
I know like on the surface when you talk with people who are plagued with the feeling of wanting to be perfect, you connect with them and you have a very vulnerable conversation, and you're both being heard, or the room's being heard, being understood. Other people don't have that plague. They don't have that, we'll call it a disease. They don't have that, and they don't hear you, and you can get really frustrated. But they have their own issue, and it's just another category, you know. And I think, like, for one of my categories that I've dealt with for my whole life is not being good enough, not being successful enough, not achieving enough. And because of that, I have, especially earlier years, I've given up everything and just drove myself mad trying to achieve things. And as I've gotten older, my attachment to the achievement is leaving the material side of it. It's going deeper into, no, I needed that so that I could realize that that was a big insecurity of mine. And if I don't tackle that and understand that insecurity, then I'll just continue to drive myself mad, needing achievement. But if I didn't drive myself mad, I wouldn't have the connection and awareness of that insecurity I had when I was 15. You know, so where I'm staying with all this is, I don't think any of it matters. I think that all of us have our own experience and our own things. And as you find what your demon is, you got to go and slay that demon. And as you slay the demon, your whole life, you're always in the good old days. You know, I'm always in the good old days slaying my demon. And as I'm becoming this next thing, I'm evolving from this kid that needed to prove everybody wrong. And now I'm just trying to prove myself, I guess, materially right, but more so I'm just like trying to express the feeling that I've learned to love about myself.